North Carolina stops Gonzaga, turning heartbreak into joy. Glendale, Arizona. The scripture led North Carolina's Justin Jackson to the story of David and Goliath, of all things. He did not plan it that way. The word spoke to him still. Many had framed the Tar Heels matchup with tiny Gonzaga in Monday's NCAA Tournament Championship game as a reprise of the classic underdog tale. Jackson read it quietly to himself, in the locker room, seeing the story in a different light. He saw a message of guile and craftiness, of David's steadfast approach to a challenge of gigantic proportions, of faith and belief. Jackson saw North Carolina as David, staring down a year's worth of anguish and torment after a last-second loss in last season's title game to Villanova. Back in the title game again, the Tar Heels were not going to be denied this time. With a vigorous second-half defensive effort, North Carolina beat Gonzaga, 71-65, at University of Phoenix Stadium to claim the program's sixth title. Joel Berry, who was named the tournament's most outstanding player, scored 22 points with 6 assists, and Kennedy Meeks 7 points, 10 rebounds contributed the block in the closing seconds that spelled the end for Gonzaga 37-2, which was playing in the program's first Final Four. "It's the best feeling I've ever felt," said Isaiah Hicks, who made the critical layup with 26 seconds left to put North Carolina ahead by 3. "I haven't cried like this in years." It was the third championship for Coach Roy Williams. At the end, when you're watching your kids jump around, he said, "There's no better feeling in the world as a coach." The Tar Heels 33-7 tried not to make the year all about redemption, even though the players had a season-long group text message chat called Redemption. Even though point guard Nate Britt, whose half-brother, Chris Jenkins, hit the shot that crumbled Carolina last year, has not brought up the game with him. Even though Williams has avoided watching the replay of last year's ending. Even though Theokinson still kept the photo of himself with his head down in the losing locker room as the screensaver on his phone. The Tar Heels tried to cast this season in a fresh light, even though most of the players who gathered in Williams's home on August 22 to eat his wife's dessert were the same players he had in the post-game locker room that night in Houston when he addressed them, struggling for words. "I felt so inadequate," Williams said, a yarn spinner reduced to a mumble. And so, even though only 7 other teams had rebounded from a championship game loss to return to the title game, and even though their championship game loss was devastating, here were the Tar Heels, none the worse for wear. When North Carolina played in Greenville, SC, in the early rounds of the NCAA tournament, the Clemson football coach DeBo Swinney met Williams and reminded him that the Tigers had lost in the national championship game and then had come back to win it a year later. "Win it just like we did," Swinney told him. North Carolina became the 4th men's college basketball team to do just that. "We won't be remembered as a team that lost in the finals," Meeks said. The player who ensured that loss last year, Jenkins, said he was more nervous watching Britt this year than he was playing for Villanova last year. "Amazing, man," Jenkins said. "Amazing. That's all I can say, amazing." Gonzaga began its year on a decidedly different note. After losing 4 starters from a year ago, the Bulldogs pieced together their roster mainly with transfers who arrived last summer unsure what to expect. To build team chemistry, Coach Mark Few organized an overnight camping trip in the woods of northern Idaho. The players protested, but a midnight hike in the darkness helped to establish the bond that would serve them 8 months later. "It was like a family trip," guard Josh Perkins said. "It paid off for us." It was an unusual exercise for Few, who said he was not one to believe in the need for team building. He, too, veered out of his comfort zone, though certainly not for the first time. Once, before the 2009 regional semifinal in Memphis, he received an unusual query late at night from a fellow coach, "You want to go shoot some cracks?" That coach was Williams. At midnight, the 2 coaches, and 2 carloads of assistants, went to Tunica, Miss, to gamble nearly until dawn. When Williams was pulled over for speeding on the ride home, he told the police officer to keep an eye out for the Ford Fiesta about 15 minutes behind, the one with Few behind the wheel. Williams appreciated Few's work ethic. Few considered Williams a mentor. For many years, Gonzaga ran a press break that it called Kansas, because few had lifted it from what he had seen Williams run with the Jayhawks when he coached them. Just copied it, boom, few said. It was a testament to the patience and foresight of few and the Gonzaga program that saw such potential blooming in the Lilac City, Spokane, Wash, that they had reached this stage. The match of Monday was hardly as one-sided as one might have expected based solely on the pedigrees of the programs. The Tar Heels were the top offensive rebounding team in Division I, and they faced the top defensive rebounding team in Gonzaga. North Carolina possessed a cold shooting offense against one of the best perimeter defenses. They had a banged-up point guard, Barry, who tried to get the Tar Heels moving in the open floor. As a David and Goliath narrative, it was just as easy to view the Tar Heels, notwithstanding their 5 championships, as the underdogs in this fight. Gonzaga no longer benefited from the out-of-nowhere mystique it might have had a decade ago. This was its first Final Four appearance, but the Bulldogs had made the NCAA tournament 19 consecutive years. They even had a McDonald's All-American, the freshman Zach Collins, coming off the bench. Strong outside shooting 5 of 9 from three-point range propelled Gonzaga to an early lead. Perkins, who was averaging 5.2 points in 5 NCAA tournament games, exploded for 13 first-half points to charge the Bulldogs, who led for nearly 15 minutes of the first half. But the Tar Heels, who missed 11 of their first 13 three-point attempts, still managed to go into halftime trailing by just 35-32. In the locker room, Williams let into his players, bothered by the lack of intensity he saw. Then Hubert Davis, an assistant coach, stood up and spoke softly. "You guys don't understand this because you're kids," he said. "But very few times in life you get second chances, you get to redo. You do. You actually get a chance to do something about it. What are you going to do?" North Carolina emerged in the second half re-energized. An instant 8-0 run gave them back the lead, although it would not last long. The three-pointer by Jordan Matthews put Gonzaga back ahead, 41-40, with 16 minutes 30 seconds to play. The game yelled back and forth from there. The pace ground to a halt, riddled with foul calls. Both teams were in the bonus with a little less than 13 minutes left. It was a slugfest out there, few said. It's two teams that desperately wanted to be crowned national champions. Gonzaga opened the second half shooting 3 of 19 from the field but managed to stay close. After back-to-back three-pointers by Nigel Williams-Goss and Jonathan Williams, the North Carolina lead was just 62-60 with 3:08 to play. "They did everything we asked them to do," few said. It would not be enough. It was 66-65 with a minute remaining when Hicks, who went 1 of 12 from the field Saturday, hung in the air and hit a bank shot to put the Tar Heels up by 3. After a block by Meeks on a wild shot by Williams-Goss, the ball was flipped ahead to Jackson for an easy dunk. "It's an unbelievable feeling," Jackson said. North Carolina could taste it now, the sensation that so narrowly eluded them a year ago. They were champions. The anguish was over.